What are the current issues with the Mula Mutha river right now?
The common point across all the problems is the Punekars itself.
Why is it that the planning hasn't kept up? How did it get so bad?
Almost 40% of the sewage goes untreated into the river right now. I would say it's an oversight, but not something I would say is like a neglected oversight. PMC has taken a lot of steps. They started with a project called pollution abatement of Mula Mutha river. We would be able to treat 100% of the wastewater which is getting generated.
Welcome to the first podcast of Our River, Our Fight. This exclusive podcast is here to get you more and more information on the Mula Mutha river and the pollution and the environment crisis that this river pollution is causing. We have with us Dhawal Patil, General Manager of Ecosan Services Foundation. So, welcome Dhawal. Thank you for joining us. So, tell us a little bit more about the Mula Mutha river and its significance to Pune city.
So, the primary significance of Mula Mutha river for the city of Pune is one, it supplies drinking water to the citizens of Pune. Second, it supplies irrigation water to the outskirts of Pune. So, it also supplies food to the Pune city. And third, which is least known but actually impacts a lot, is its flood control properties, which we see during monsoon. Unfortunately, we as Punekars, we only come to know about this when our roads become river.
So what are the current issues with the Mula Mutha river right now?
So as I said about the two functions of the river as of now, drinking water supply and flood control, but rivers are usually multitaskers. They can provide a lot of different functions. They can provide functions such as economic functions, cultural functions, and ecological functions. Unfortunately, in case of Mula Mutha river, these are the three functions which have been gone over a period of time. If we talk about the cultural function, Mula Mutha had a very strong place in Pune's culture. Few decades ago, if you see, the banks of Mula Mutha river were used as a place of gathering, the place where people used to celebrate festivals. But now it is all gone. Now Mula Mutha is treated like a distant relative by the Punekars, and they only talk about these relatives when Ganesh Visarjan comes into the picture. If we talk about the economical function, the economical function is in terms of the fisheries that can Mula Mutha sort of provide, or the function that the waterway can be used as a route for transportation. And ecological function, if I have to talk about it, the Mula Mutha river basin was very rich in herbs and plantations which contributed to Ayurveda a lot. Eventually, all of this has been gone.
The Mula Mutha river, it doesn't, when you look at the river, it doesn't flow like a river, right? It looks, it looks sluggish, it looks stagnant. So is that also an issue in the river? Has it become, and is it because of the, the sewage and all the problems that are with the river?
Excellent point. Rivers have something called E-flow, that is environmental flow. Environmental flow is required for the ecological function of the river. So if the river needs to give that function, E-flow needs to be maintained in the river. But if you see across India, not just Mula Mutha, what the cities do is we plan reservoirs and dams on these rivers. So we obstruct the flow of the river so that we can gather that water, use it for different purposes, thereby impacting the E-flow of the river. If the E-flow is impacted, the property of the river to self-rejuvenate, the power of the river to self-rejuvenate also declines. This is one of the primary reasons why Mula Mutha has been polluted so much. If we have the data before and after the Khadakwasla dam was put up, this can be clearly seen. But I doubt if we have that kind of data available to see and understand the impact of such structures on the river itself.
So what is the genesis of this problem? Like, how did it, we know that, sewage was being dumped into the river earlier as well, and that, there was some amount of encroachment towards the river, and, the dam was built for the benefit of the citizens, right? So, but how did it get so bad? Like, when, at what point did it like start that we reached the tipping point, and why did we reach the tipping point?
So again, here I would like to go a little back into the history of all the mega cities and metro cities around the globe. If you see New York, London, Pune, Kolkata, all these cities have flourished because they were on the river. In all these cities, in the history, these waterways were used as drainage systems as well. So all the wastewater, stormwater, or domestic sewage was actually put out into the rivers, and the rivers were used as a mechanism to sort of take the waste downstream. London is a great example because it has come in the history that the Thames River was completely dead. There was nothing living in the river. And that was the point when the authorities thought that, okay, we need to revive the river, and major steps were taken to revive the river. So, river rejuvenation is not something which is impossible. History has shown that it is possible. It's just the right intent and the steps we all need to take in the same direction. So, coming to the point now about the Mula Mutha river and the cause of these problems. The common point across all the problems is the Punekars itself. Unfortunately, what has happened is the population growth in Pune city has accelerated in last, say, 3 to 4 decades. When the wastewater management systems were not there, our water was also going into the river. But then the river had the capacity to take up that wastewater and rejuvenate itself and treat that water as it flows ahead. Over the period of time, what happened is the population grew, and it grew to the extent that the river now cannot sort of accept and accommodate this level of pollution. On top of that, even after having a lot of infrastructure in place, almost 40% of the sewage goes untreated into the river right now. So the flow which you see now is not the natural flow, environmental flow, but the flow which comes from the mix of treated and untreated sewage from of the Pune city into the Mula Mutha river. So that, I would say, is the root cause of all the problems.
In Pune, you're right that population has exploded, and we have and it's our infrastructure, etc., have not kept up with that. But the fact is that in Pune, we wanted this to happen, right? We wanted to set it up as an IT major town. We wanted industry to come in. We wanted the city to become one of the major metros in the country, right? Was there an oversight in planning?
So if we go in the history of Pune city, where we want to understand when these IT hubs were came and sort of planned, this is just before 2000s, when the year 2000, when it was thought that, okay, Pune can become the IT capital of Maharashtra, and or rather India, because such huge campuses were not there in any other cities at that point of time. So it was planned that these IT hubs should come up and the employment opportunities should grow. But if you see, the priority even in terms of planning is always to the economy first, society second, and environment third. If you look at the SDGs as well, the SDGs which are connected to the economy are always considered on the top. Then comes the SDGs which are connected to the society, and last is the SDGs connected to the environment. But what usually is becomes an oversight from the practitioners such as planners, engineers, politicians, bureaucrats, is that for the stability of this pyramid, or this wedding cake as we call in case of SDGs, the top tier is heavily dependent on the next two tiers. So if we don't preserve or conserve the nature, it will first impact the society, and it will eventually impact the economy. So now that Pune city has become the sort of IT hub and the economic capital after Mumbai, definitely what we are seeing is its impact on the third tier, that is environment. And its impact on the society. The society is now just getting started to understand what the problem is, how the environment has depreciated over the period of time, and what needs to be done. So they are sort of looking forward to the solutions now. So that's why I think I would say it's an oversight, but not something I would say is like a neglected oversight. It's an oversight because the planning was such that economy got boosted first, and its impact is seen now.
As you mentioned that that we've reached a point where action needs to be taken, and river rejuvenation is very much possible, right? So what is being done by PMC here?
So, over a period of time, PMC has taken a lot of steps for wastewater management in the Pune city. Most of these steps are infrastructure driven. You would be surprised to know that Pune city, under Pune city, there is 2200 kilometers of sewerage line spread across the city, which collects the wastewater. And then there are series of pumping stations which pump the wastewater and bring them to the 9 sewage treatment plants, which are now treating the sewage. The cumulative capacity of these 9 treatment plants is close to 470 million liters per day. However, the problem is our wastewater generation is 800 million liters per day. So we are just trying to sort of treat 60% of the wastewater. But then what PMC has done is they started with a project called Pollution Abatement of Mula Mutha River, whose abbreviation is PARMM. And in that project, there are 11 new STPs which are being set up with a cumulative capacity of over 400 MLD. So eventually, when that project gets sort of finished, we would be able to treat 100% of the wastewater which is getting generated. On top of that, Pune Municipal Corporation also has started a project for revamping or refurbishing the old STPs. The 9 STPs which I was talking about are more than 15 years old, and they are working to their full capacity. So in order to augment their capacity and also the efficiency of treatment, Pune Municipal Corporation has sanctioned a project under Amrut program where they are sort of augmenting these 9 treatment plants. And then there is this third project which is being sanctioned by Government of Maharashtra to Pune Municipal Corporation, is for setting up the wastewater management systems in the additional new villages which have been amalgamated in the Pune's administrative boundary. In the last decade, over 14 villages have been added to the Pune Municipal Corporation's administrative boundary, and these villages have no wastewater management as of now. So now it becomes a responsibility of Pune Municipal Corporation to not just provide wastewater management, but also water to these newly added villages. So these are the 3 things what Pune Municipal Corporation has done and is going to do to sort of manage the wastewater of the Pune city.
Seems like PARMM is the biggest project which is ongoing right now. So can you tell us a little bit more about PARMM?
So PARMM project, which is pollution abatement of river Mula Mutha, that project has 3 components. It's like a 3-legged stool. One is the infrastructure, second is the technology, and third is citizens engagement. If we talk about the infrastructure, as I already said, there is a lot of infrastructure in place for managing wastewater, and we are able to manage only 60% of the wastewater. But to cater to the other 40%, more than 100 kilometers of sewerage network is going to be laid. The pumping station's capacities is going to be augmented by 165 MLD. That's a huge sort of upgrade. And then 11 new STPs are going to be set up. So that's the infrastructure part. In terms of technology, the project is also building the capacity of the officials in order to maintain the sort of the infrastructure which is going to be set up. So there are a lot of different technological components such as GIS, MIS. GIS is Geographical Information System, MIS is Management Information System. So these things are being integrated into the project, and these technology help to not just operate but also monitor the systems in real time basis. So it is going, so a lot of capacity building is happening. And then the third component is citizens engagement, where Pune Municipal Corporation has engaged environmental agencies to spread awareness about the project as to what all is being done as part of the project, and sort of generate awareness at a local level. The thing is, all the Punekars should know what is happening and for whom it is happening, and what needs to be done to sustain that infrastructure. It is not just Pune Municipal Corporation's responsibility to set up and run the infrastructure. It's somewhere all the Punekars need to sit on that stool very responsibly, because if they don't sit, then eventually they are the first ones to fall into the river.
It seems like a lot of work is happening on the infrastructure, especially on laying out the pipelines. So one question that comes to my mind is that what about the first mile connectivity to these pipelines?
So in case of PARMM, what we have done is we have identified different stakeholders. For example, housing societies who have their own sewage treatment plants. So for them, we have a different way of engaging with them, where we don't sort of directly go and start asking about their sewage treatment plant, because that might set them off. But we sort of talk to them about how you consume water, how much you consume water, what happens to that water. You will be surprised that how many people who reside in Pune don't know from where the water comes from in their taps, and where does the water go after they flush the toilet. There are a lot of people, and I think the majority chunk of the people who come from outside, they don't know these nitty-gritties or this information, and that becomes the disconnect. So through this project, what we are trying to do is also make them understand as to how significant role the river Mula Mutha plays into their day-to-day lives. So coming back to the point, we are also engaging with school students. We see school students as the agents of change. So what we do is we sort of have different level of sort of competitions, drawing competitions, slogan competitions. In Pune, we have this, we always joke about Puneri Patya, right? So few weeks back, I came across a very interesting concept where school students were asked to prepare Puneri Patya for spreading this message. And it was a really nice thing to see as to how creative the students can become in this process. So we see that the students, they can also take our message back home, talk to not just their parents, but their neighbors and their friends as well, who are not in the same school. So eventually the message gets spread to a lot of people. Then we come to the stakeholder, that is the people who are residing in the slums. For them, we have to have a very deeper connection or deeper sort of engagement. And that is where we are hosting Pathanatyas, which are more dramatic, which are more connecting, because then people are closer to you, they are listening to you, there is music going on. So these kinds of different level of engagements and small and big sort of events are being done. We also celebrated Nadi Mahotsav at the beginning of our engagement with Pune Municipal Corporation for this PARMM project, where we had set up information stalls in various places. So the gardens which are along the river, we had set up stalls there. We conducted sort of discussions with the elderly people who had come to these gardens about the Mula Mutha river. So there are different ways in which IEC campaigns or BCC campaigns need to be conducted, and we are making sure that we reach out to different people in different ways, so that the engagement deepens and the message gets through to the citizens of Pune.
Pune has a huge garbage problem, and we have a lot of garbage lying on our roads. Even there's a lot of plastic that is, floating around. Citizens are not really segregating dry and wet waste. How are we dealing with this under the PARMM project? Because a lot of this garbage does flow into the river.
So what happened is, in Swachh Bharat mission at a national level, it was decided that all the cities across India should try to aim for bin free sort of concept. So they brought in bin-free city concept, where all the urban local bodies were urged to remove these community level bins, but in exchange of that, provide door-to-door collection of household waste. So that was a massive step. If we see in terms of providing the services to the masses or to the residents of the city, this was a massive step, because earlier the person was responsible for taking the trash out to the community level bin, but now that need not be done. So it was a very welcome move, but easier said than done. Providing services of door-to-door household solid waste collection is not an easy task. You need to penetrate into the society, reach that last mile connectivity, and that requires not just infrastructure but lot of human resources as well. So Pune city has been able to manage solid waste to some extent. They have sort of partnered with another NGO called Swachh, which is responsible for primary collection, that is collection of the household waste from the houses and bringing it to a point where it gets collected and transferred to bigger trucks which manage, which take the solid waste to the treatment facilities. But again, there are a lot of gaps and lacunas in this management, not just infrastructure, but overall management of the infrastructure and the services. So definitely solid waste is a big problem, but we have improved significantly over a period of time. But you rightly said, what happens to the unmanaged solid waste is, I always say that this waste has an inbuilt GPS system. They always find the way to the river. So through rivers or through during monsoon, the stormwater takes all the plastic bags and all the waste through the stormwater network to the river. So eventually river becomes the receptacle of all the solid waste which is not managed by the city. So yes, one of the components in our PARMM project is also to address this garbage vulnerable points, where these points have been identified and these points are being converted into garbage free points, and we are going to do a lot of sort of wall paintings and make these spots look beautiful. Rather than garbage collection points, they become points where citizens can come and interact with each other and have a good time. So that is what we are trying to plan through PARMM project as well. So PARMM project is not just about wastewater management, it also delves a little bit into solid waste management, because eventually both these things are connected to each other.
So there are, there are two misconceptions, I think, that, or rather you could say there are two questions that keep coming up regarding the PARMM project. The first one is that the plants that have been set up, okay, they are focused on treating natural contaminants, but in our water you have a lot of affluents, etc. So the water is actually only partially treated, okay, and that in itself, if it's going into the river, is going to be harmful or continue to be harmful. The second thing is that from what, again, the question that we keep hearing is that the treated water is actually not supposed to go into the river. You are supposed to reuse it in societies, etc. But there are no buyers for it. So, so then what is going to happen over here?
So I'll first sort of tackle the first question, which is what happens to the contaminants which are not natural. I'll answer that from the experience of doing a project for Pune Municipal Corporation. So under that project, we did a very comprehensive sampling of wastewater which comes into the sewage treatment plant. And when we did that sampling, we found out that the phosphorus content, total phosphorus in that wastewater was really high, higher, almost 10 times high as what it is supposed to be found in the domestic sewage. And if that wastewater or that concentration keeps on coming into the sewage treatment plant, the treatment plant cannot handle such level of phosphorus into the wastewater. So eventually what will happen is the treated water which comes out of that STP will always have higher concentration of phosphorus. It will get reduced, but it won't, the reduction won't happen that it becomes compliant to the regulations. So this is one part of the problem. Then there are other contaminants such as microplastics, PFAS, which is sort of Teflon, which comes from the kitchen utensils. Typically, sewage treatment plants are not designed to treat these kinds of contaminants. Sewage treatment plants are traditionally designed for removing organic contaminants, which is the fecal matter coming from human bodies. But now, over the period of time across the globe, the research has sort of suggested that sewage treatment facilities should also try to target to remove these unusual contaminants. But in case of India or in case of Pune, I think where we are struggling with trying to sort of treat 100% of the wastewater, I think shifting our focus to these newer contaminants or emerging contaminants, as the industry says, I think it's not wise. But while saying that, I will say we need to start understanding the severity of this problem now so that we can plan a solution later on, which is much more robust. So we need to start collecting the data as to what are the concentrations of these emerging contaminants in our domestic sewage, while trying to meet the goals in terms of quantity, because 40% is not a small amount. 40% of the wastewater which goes untreated into the river, that is a big chunk. So I think we need to meet that target first before we even shift our focus to these emerging contaminants. And this message comes from a simple economical point of view, that treating these emerging contaminants need far more budget than treating the rest 40% of the sewage water. So if we see cost to benefit ratio, the meeting the quantity of wastewater, that has a bigger cost to benefit ratio than right now sort of focusing on the emerging contaminants for us and for the environment. Now shifting the focus to the reuse part of it. So under different flagship programs of Government of India, reuse of treated wastewater has been promoted. In one of the policy documents, it is said that all the cities should plan for at least 30% of the treated wastewater to be reused. But in case of Pune, the problem is that Pune doesn't have its own sort of users of treated wastewater. For example, if we compare PCMC, Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation, and PMC, PCMC has a MIDC at Chakhand, which is very close, and MIDC need a lot of water for its function. So, and this water need not be potable water or drinking water. So there is a big potential there where PCMC can treat the wastewater and provide it to the MIDC at a better rate. In case of PMC, that is unfortunately not the sort of possibility. But what I know is because the water which we get for drinking, although it comes from Khadakwasla Dam, the Khadakwasla Dam as an asset belongs to the irrigation department. And that is a very special case in case of Maharashtra, that all these dams and reservoirs on the river, they belong to the irrigation department or water resource department. So the deal which has been struck between PMC and irrigation department is the treated wastewater from the STPs will be put into the irrigation channel, which is closer to the Pune city, so that all the treated wastewater or major part of it can be directly reused into agriculture. So for agriculture, the treated wastewater is perfect because the wastewater doesn't, or the treated water doesn't have very high level of contamination, and actually the whatever the organic load which the treated water has, that becomes like a additive or a fertilizer, an enhancer to the agriculture. So it is actually win-win for the city as well as for the agriculture. But then when we talk about the reuse, usually the hurdle is pricing of the water, because if we, and the reuse stakeholders are very price sensitive. So if we take example of industry currently, if the industry is getting fresh water from two sources, say a municipal water supply or groundwater, Now, if municipal water supply, they are getting, say, at a rate of, say, 100 rupees per kiloliter. And now the urban local body says, hey, you need to take this treated water from me, but you need to give us 101 rupee per kiloliter. Industry will say, hey, why should I give you 1 rupee more behind every kiloliter? I would keep on doing the same thing which I have been doing for decades, because they are all business oriented. So 1 rupee can make a huge difference on their balance sheet. So the reuse part of all these projects of STPs are always facing this issue of what should be the price of the treated wastewater. Looking at the overall this thing projects across India, the pricing of the wastewater cannot be linked to the project budget itself. So if I say I have invested, say, 100 rupees in setting up the infrastructure, and I need to recover all that money and the operation maintenance cost of this infrastructure by selling the treated wastewater, that cannot happen, because the stakeholder who is going to reuse that water will not pay that much money. So we need to look at it from subsidizing the operation and maintenance, at least not from the recovery of the budget point of view. So if we can get some revenue from the treated wastewater, then it can be at least the start to subsidizing the cost of operating and maintaining this infrastructure. So it's a very complex sort of situation when we talk about the reuse of treated water from these STPs.
You mentioned that the partially treated water that will be coming out of these STPs will be used for irrigation. But at the same time, you did mention that there is a high phosphorus content. There are microplastics. So what you called as new age contaminants, right? So will that not affect the soil health and overall, the food production wherever this water is being used for irrigation?
So these emerging contaminants do have a potential to impact soil health and say agricultural yield itself. But then if we look at the concentrations of these emerging contaminants in our domestic sewage, once that sewage gets treated in the sewage treatment plant, I wouldn't call it partially treated, because the treatment plant is not removing the emerging contaminants. Here I think we should give benefit of doubt to the sewage treatment plant that it is not designed to remove. So hence the treated water, the concentration of these emerging contaminants in the treated water wouldn't be that high. Also, we need to understand when the reuse happens, say the reuse of treated water in agriculture for irrigation purpose. So the water is usually spread across a larger patch of land where the potential accumulation of, say, these emerging contaminants or heavy metals or anything or any other contaminant per square foot or per square meter area will be low. So maybe we will have to irrigate the water for 20-30 years in order to reach to a point where the soil becomes non-compliant for agriculture. Also, I'm saying all of these things from the theoretical perspective, and the reason why I'm talking from a theoretical perspective is there is no research happening on this. Research is happening in the European countries and the US, but in India the research is not happening to the extent it should happen. So in lack of that data or evidence, it is very difficult to say as to how significant that impact would be if we use the treated water for agriculture.
So we've spoken a lot about PARMM, okay, and we've understood what the project is like. But what I wanted to understand from you is that, where are we lacking now in terms of the wider citizens, corporates, and youth coming together for the river and its solutions?
Pune, as we all know, is known as Oxford of East, but unfortunately, Mula Mutha doesn't find or it's not featured adequately in the research projects in coming in the Pune city. So what I see immediately, what can be done in the first few years is these projects can be funded where the universities, we have a lot of good universities in Pune city. These universities can deploy their resources such as students and researchers to do different kinds of projects, different kinds of research projects onto the river. And here, when I say different kinds of research project, I don't mean just environmental sciences or engineering. We need to look at the river because initially I said river is a multitasker and it has a lot of different functions to play. So the research should also happen from all the perspectives. So even social science should come into the picture, microbiology should come into the picture, zoology should come into the picture, botany should come into the picture. So the research should happen from all the angles. Heritage is one big angle which we are missing on in case of Mula Mutha river. So the research should happen from all these perspectives and the data should be gathered in the first few years. This data can play a big role in shaping not just the policies but also the infrastructure projects. A lot of time the planning of these infrastructure projects is faced with time constraints, and in such cases a lot of data cannot be collected to make very informed decisions. So we take very calculated risks while designing and planning for these projects. But if such research keeps on happening, then that the data through that research can definitely feed in to these project planning, and thereby eliminating the risks which are involved in the project planning, and also in some certain cases reduce the time which is required for planning of such projects. So not just from the awareness generation point of view, but this is the biggest potential I see in Pune city that can be funded in order to sort of work for the river and revive the river.
You did mention just now that Pune is the Oxford of the East, and so that automatically entails that we have a really big youth dividend, right? And so, how can that youth dividend be used towards, solving the issues of Mula Mutha River?
Research is one such way which will deepen the engagement. The cleanup drives or the plantation drives can start the engagement. But if you really want to make the youth passionate about a purpose or a cause, then they need to immerse themselves into that problem. So research is one such type of engagement where it helps them to eventually get immersed into the problem, understand it completely, and also try to develop a solution for it, while getting benefited academically. Because when they do such good research, impactful research, ultimately academically also they get a lot of recognition. So that's why I'm promoting or recommending that for youth engagement, this sort of collaboration between the three stakeholders, three wherein universities, where youth are, Pune Municipal Corporation, and the community built organizations or NGOs who have a great level of ground level understanding of the problem. These three parties need to collaborate together eventually to sort of initiate the engagement, deepen the engagement, and then I'm pretty sure today's youth is very sensitive. Once they understand the nature of the problem, they sort of stand by it and fight for it. So I'm pretty sure if we just take them or ask them to take or help them to take 10 steps, they will take the next 90 steps automatically.
Thank you, Dhawal. This has been such an interesting conversation, and there's so much now clarity both on what is happening with the river, what initiatives are being taken to manage the issues of the river, and also what needs to be done. So, thank you so much.
Welcome.